Hey guys, it's Mahoney coming to you with another Tuesday tip, and now apparently I can put my handheld device so that it follows me around while I'm sitting in my chair. Technology is amazing. So Illinois is getting pretty close to legalizing marijuana, and so I thought I would talk a little bit tonight about the history of that and some of the problems that it's going to bring up in terms of where we go from here with this social experiment. So marijuana, like cocaine and opioids, back in the 1860s, right after the Civil War, which was 1860 to 1865, 64, 65, was legal and was available over the counter without any prescription whatsoever. There was actually advertisements in Vanity Fair for hashish products, and you didn't hear it called marijuana. It was considered hashish, and it wasn't smoked back then. It was put into a liquid form, and many times taken in liquid form or even put into some sort of candy. So yes, edibles were the first thing that was done, and it was used for all kinds of stuff, from relaxation to dealing with hyperactivity and nervousness, all the other disorders. Widely used in the late 1800s. Then in the early 1900s, immigration started into this country from Mexico, especially after the Spanish-American War. And many people from Mexico used the drug, but they used it in the leaf form and would roll it up and smoke it in a marijuana joint. While there was a lot of anti-Mexican feelings in the United States, there was a lot of racism that went on with who used the drug. So suddenly, the drug started to develop a bad reputation. Then in the 1920s, you had prohibition going on, and opioids and cannabis, hashish and cannabis now coming from Mexico as opposed to hashish coming from Turkey, and also cocaine, which started out initially in Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola initially had some cocaine in it. That's part of where the name came from. There started to be a real anti-feeling of these various drugs, and as prohibition went on, there was other lawsuits or other hearings that went on in Congress. William Randolph Hearst was actually one of the people that was a big supporter of making all of these various things illegal. And so during the 1920s, they all became illegal in the various states one by one, and then the United States actually passed the Cannabis Tax Act in the 1930s, I believe, is when they passed that. And the Cannabis Tax Act, which is actually still a law, didn't make cannabis illegal, but simply said that if you sell cannabis, you have to pay a tax, and if you don't pay that tax, then you can be in trouble with the government, and the government can come back and come after you, which was a way that the government could quantifiably make it illegal, even though it wasn't illegal. So all of those substances have stayed illegal since that period of time, and it was also during that period of time in those hearings that you started to hear about violent crimes happening as a result of marijuana. This was part of the propaganda that William Randolph Hearst, and one of the big stars from the Spanish-American War, one of the heroes of the Spanish-American War, perpetuated. Some of these things led to the movie Reefer Madness that came out in the 1950s. So all of these things stayed illegal for a long period of time. It was in the 1960s when college students started using the drug that the drug started taking on another connotation and stopped being such an evil drug and a drug of the underbelly of society, and that caused all kinds of crimes, to developing a different connotation. And then since the 1960s up until now, obviously the feeling towards the drug has continued to change over time, and the last three United States presidents have all admitted that they at least used the drug at least once. So now the various states are legalizing the drug. The first being Colorado in 2016, and initially it was medical marijuana. That is, the medical marijuana part is mostly a formality, and the state of Illinois is going to officially legalize the drug January 1st of 2020. And Illinois is going to make it just 1,000% legal. It's right from the chute. It's available anywhere. Well, as is with anything else, this is going to be an interesting social experiment. Now, in Colorado, some of the things that has happened. Well, there's been some positives as a result of the legalization. There's been a ton of tax revenue collected from the various dispensaries. There was even a year in the city of Denver where instead of paying property tax, they paid you back because of all the money that they collected. The city has been able to do all kinds of downtown development projects. They've been able to do a whole mess of stuff collecting the money. Other side of it, you can't put the money in a bank. Every bank is FDIC insured, federally insured. It is still illegal on the federal level, which the federal law is superior to the state law, to possess, manufacture, deliver, distribute marijuana, use marijuana. It's still illegal. So all of these people that are operating in the states, they can't stick their money into the banks. So they're all buying up these storage units, and they're buying Suburbans, and they're moving the money around in Suburbans and sticking it in these storage units. Huge hordes of cash, which is also illegal under the federal government to do, but everybody's doing it. Navy SEALs right now, when they retire in San Diego, they immediately hop on a plane on Southwest Airlines. They fly to Colorado, and they get a job running around this money for the various people that are selling marijuana, because somebody has to guard the money. And that's also created an increase in art, because they're taking the money and they're buying art. Rolex watches have become popular. Other collectible items have become popular because they got to put the money somewhere. The other thing that's happened is there wasn't a regulation as to how much marijuana was in each product. So like with alcohol, if you have a beer, you know that it has a certain amount of alcohol in it, and you know that if you drink a glass of beer as close to a glass of vodka or a glass of whiskey, you're going to get a different amount of alcohol, and it's going to affect you differently. Well, edibles didn't say that. So you had an edible, and one day would have this much THC in it, and one another day would have this much THC. So they had people ODing, and I mean ODing by marijuana is essentially freaking out, so they had to go to the emergency room and take care of them. Obviously, a lot more people are going to try the drug, which means more people are going to become addicted. It does have addictive qualities, just like any drug does. It doesn't have the same addictive qualities as alcohol or tobacco or crystal meth, but it does have addictive qualities. So more people get addicted. More people also get treatment. The other thing, like driving and work, I mean, your company can still tell you that you cannot have THC in your system and do your job, especially if you work in a factory, especially if you drive a truck, especially if you operate a crane, just like you can't drink. And marijuana use, every other recreational narcotic is out of your system in 24 hours. Marijuana can store in the fatty tissues in your system. Now, it takes a while for that to happen. If you smoke once, it's not going to store in the fatty tissues of your system. But if you are a habitual user, if you're a daily user, it will. And so you will still test positive for the drug. And if your company can say you have to be zero, you have to have, they can say you have to have a 0 blood alcohol content in order to operate this heavy piece of equipment. Well, they can do the same with THC. Also, with regards to driving, that is a real challenge, because with alcohol there's kind of a standard where if you drink one drink, you kind of end up with a 0.02 blood alcohol level. 2 drinks within an hour, and you can get to a 0.04, and your body typically processes 1 drink an hour. There's a little bit of a standard, so we can say if you're over 0.04 or 06 or 08, then you're going to be considered legally intoxicated. Well, that doesn't exist, at least not as of yet, that they've figured out with marijuana. People can smoke the same amount of marijuana and be all over the board. So what are you supposed to do with driving? Well, right now, the rule is going to be that you got to have, it's 0. You can't have any in your system and drive. Okay, well, that means that if you are at a club and you breathe in marijuana and you happen to get tested, causes a problem. It used to be that was a defense that criminals used all the time when they were in court. They would say, well, I didn't smoke it, my neighbor smoked it. Well, it was easy for the court to handle that. They just say, well, don't be around people who are committing a crime, and you're not going to get in trouble when you're in court. Well, now they can't say that anymore. Those people might not have been committing a crime. If it's legal, they can smoke it. So as a social experiment, it's going to create more economic activity. It's going to create tax dollars. It's going to create more businesses. It's also going to create problems. It's going to create issues medically. When something's new, people tend to overuse it. So there's going to be some challenges there. And as a social experiment, it's going to be something that we as a country are going to have to figure out. I think we've certainly gotten past a lot of the preconceived ideas about the drug, but it's going to be interesting to watch the state of Illinois and the other states deal with the issue moving forward. And then lastly, the feds, it's still illegal with the federal government, and that hasn't changed. The Trump administration has indicated they're not going to change that. They haven't indicated that they're going to come after anybody yet. It would seem that the snake has been let out of the bottle, so to speak, that I think it'd be hard to put that back. But if they wanted to, they could start cracking down tomorrow and start busting all these things. So as of right now, this stuff is all in flux. Generally speaking, if history has any guide for us as to where this is going to go, it'll go all over the place for a little while, and then it'll kind of settle down, and we'll all end up getting used to it, and people will understand how much they can smoke and how much they can't smoke, and there'll be people who are smokers and there'll be people who are not smokers, just like alcohol. I can't imagine going over to Grandma and Grandpa's house for a dinner party, and in addition to the vodka and the whiskey sitting on the bar, there's a big bong in the corner, and anybody who wants can go take a hit. Just kind of seems a little odd, but that might exactly be where we are. And who'd have thought that we'd have seen it in our lifetime, but we certainly are seeing it in our lifetime. I hope you found this useful and informative with regards to where we came and where we're headed. I look forward to talking to you guys next week. I do have a big announcement coming at the end of August. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.